My guest, Danny Steyne, this is absolutely amazing. He went to heaven and found out how to reverse the aging process. No one's running out for food or popcorn during this show. Danny, tell me about, you've been a lover of God your whole life. You marry a woman you're madly in love with. You have 4 beautiful children. And then 16 years later, what happens?
16 years later, she evidently thought that was enough, and she left. And
who had custody of those 4 beautiful children?
At that point, I had custody. And
so how's it feel? I mean, I hate to put it this way, but I want to know, how does it feel to be abandoned by someone you love?
It was the most excruciating pain I'd ever gone through at that point. I had never thought that would ever happen to me. I never thought I'd be a divorced man.
It's not supposed to happen, especially someone raised in a Christian environment.
It had never happened in our family. And so it was something that was really foreign, really to me and my whole family as we walked through that, even my siblings and everything else. It was just a very foreign concept. But excruciating pain. I went through many sleepless nights. I went through many tears, tons of grief, devastated me. I thought I'd never minister ever again because in my upbringing, I just didn't think that you could, having gone through what I'd just gone through. But that was a very difficult time. I left the church I was pastoring at that point in time, but I went actually through something far more severe a few years later.
I know about that. No one should have to go through what Danny went through. His children went to visit his ex-wife, and the 2 youngest ones were kidnapped. When did you realize this happened?
Well, actually, that happened. It was in December in 1999, and they had actually taken my son, who was 16, as well as my 2 youngest, who at that point were 6 and 8, and they drove to a city that none of them had been to before, and took a night in the hotel. And during the night, they fled with the 2 little girls and actually abandoned my son in the hotel as well. That was an excruciatingly, agonizingly painful time. I thought that the first pain had been difficult. Nothing was more decimating than that. It was horrible. And I remember walking into their room after they'd left and just collapsing on the floor, just in tears. And I had no way of knowing where they were, what was going on.
How long did it take you to contact the FBI for help?
Well, I tried to contact them right away. They wouldn't believe me initially. It took them 2 weeks to get to us. By that time, obviously, they were long gone. But during that period of time, there was a real confidence that I had that God was going to restore them. I had no idea how. I didn't know when. I wasn't exactly sure when it was. I thought initially, it'd be very soon, but the soon grew into years pretty quickly.
Did you know or hope that you'd ever see them again as this grew into years?
I did. In fact, people have often asked me that. They said, how did you maintain hope? And I said, Jesus is my hope. And so as a result of him being my hope, I can't lose hope in him.
Yeah, but that's easy to say right now, but it must have been so agonizing.
But he'd given me a promise. And in that promise, he really declared, he said, your children will come home from the land of their exile. Through Jeremiah.
You read it in the scriptures, and it just jumped out at you.
It was one of those words that was so clear, and he just said, your children will return from the land. and I knew that it was my
All
children.
right, so you're remarried now, and the ministry is starting to prosper, but you have this big hole in your heart. Your two
Absolutely.
youngest daughters, and year after year after year goes by.
Yes.
Now, let's go to another arena of your life. You and I have a mutual friend. His name is Surprise. He's from Mozambique, Africa, and he works with Heidi Baker Ministries in Mozambique. That every miracle you read about in the Bible is happening there. As a matter of fact, Danny, what's the latest you've heard about people that are dead that are coming back to life in Mozambique?
It's a pretty phenomenal thing. Iris is wonderfully understating some of the things that are happening, which I love about them. But I believe that the figure now is in the 50s of the number of people that have died and been brought back to life.
What constitutes someone dying and coming back to life?
In our Western culture, we would take anybody who just drops off and we can get them back. But Surprise actually says they don't count anybody unless they've been dead for 4 hours and remain alive for a year.
What are those? You showed me a picture of worship in Mozambique. What are those flames over all the people?
That actually has happened, I guess, on a few occasions. And on one occasion in particular, there was an event where Surprise was preaching, and people literally saw fire coming out of his mouth. And that's the result were those pictures.
You know, we have people that say they see angels behind us
Right.
as we're speaking. I wouldn't be surprised if some of you aren't going to see a fire. We'll be right back, and you'll find out about an angel coming unawares. Don't go away.
We'll be right back to It's Supernatural. We now return to It's Supernatural.
Hello, Sid Roth here with Danny Steyne. And Danny, we were talking about a man by the name of Surprise who works with the Heidi Baker Ministries in Mozambique, Africa, and the dead coming back to life and how they're understating it. And these people are dead. How long do they have to be dead?
4 hours.
Okay, and they understate it. They say something like 50 have come back from the dead. So Danny was with this fella, Surprise, and you were, as I understand it, you were looking for a breakthrough or something, and he walks up to you, and you ask him to pray for you. Tell me the circumstances.
I was in Sacramento actually at that point, and I needed something at that point, and I just said, Surprise, would you pray for me? And he laid hands on me and he said, you are going to the New Jerusalem. And immediately there was a release that came on me, and I ended up having a wonderful visitation with the Lord.
Stop for a second. You know what's going on right now? God's presence has so invaded the studio. Danny, are you feeling what I'm feeling?
I am.
It's almost like as you're talking about, you literally left your body? Or how did this happen? You said you were in New Jerusalem.
You know, the realm of the Spirit, the realm of God, is a very real realm. And God is looking for people that will become comfortable with His realm.
I love it.
Yeah, I love it.
I mean, I can, and I know you can. I can feel when His realm invades the studio.
Yeah, when you read the pages of the Bible, you realize that that is such a supernatural reality that they lived in, and we have so easily forgotten that all that we believe is based upon something extremely supernatural, and we have to learn to enter into that place.
Is that why you wrote your book, These Walk on Water?
Yes, I did.
And walking on water, that's pretty supernatural. But you know what? There's going to be such a separation coming. And I love this book because this book will allow people to move into that invisible realm. So anyway, you're touched, you find yourself in what is the New Jerusalem?
It's a place that was, when I was there, was amazing, because as I got closer to it, I began realizing that even the buildings themselves were alive. And I began realizing this is what he means by that we are living stones all being built up. And that there's something, they were moving. There was a visible...
Like breathing.
Yes, it was an amazing thing. As the Lord showed me that. And
well, you know what? Everything is life. There's a mixture, life and death on this side of heaven. But in the New Jerusalem, everything is alive. So that makes sense.
Absolutely, absolutely. And he took me there, and then he took me actually to this place that was vast, and I saw warehouse after warehouse after warehouse, just fields and fields of them. And I knew I was to go into this one warehouse. And as I went in there, I looked at a table that was in there, and I looked at what appeared to be body parts, and I saw a foot, and I saw a leg, and I saw hands, and I just body parts, but there was no life in them. It was just, they were the body parts. But then I recognized that the feet I was looking at were mine, but they were much younger, much, much younger. And I went, what is this?
That's a good question. I would have said the same.
and I heard the Father say, these are your body parts. And I said, well, what does that mean? He said, I'm waiting for you to ask me to release those to you. That he said, I will give life to them, but that you don't need to wear out. You can continue on.
You had a dream about how long you'll be living. Tell me about
Actually, I had multiple dreams.
Really?
And I actually went to some friends that I really trust who really hear from God as well. And I asked them about this dream because it was so odd to me, because I'm not your normal fit kind of a guy. And I said, I had this dream, and in the dream, I was 118 years old and I was preaching the gospel. And every one of them said, we believe that is absolutely literal, Danny. And I believe that. I believe that's what the Father was showing me, that I'll live to 118 and be preaching the gospel until that time.
With new body parts, not 118 in a decrepit body, but with the new body parts.
We can't live in a body that is constantly breaking down. We're going to live from glory to glory. We're going to live in a realm where there is an increase of health that's going to come on us supernaturally. It is God who gives life, and it is God who holds our lives in his hands.
I believe, now this is between you and me,
yeah,
but I believe this. Yes. I believe I'm going to get younger, and it'll be a sign and a wonder on those that are watching the television show.
Right.
They'll begin to see me get younger. You just got to watch all the time. But it's not just you. It's not just me. It's for whosoever, I believe.
Right. Well, it's a piece of the gospel that we have. When I received Jesus, I was born anew. And I was born into something that was eternal, not something that was going to be decrepit. And so, I mean, we're seeing miracles happening in old people and everything.
That 85-year-old woman, don't go away. We're going to talk about what happened to this 85-year-old woman. We'll be right back.
We'll be right back to It's Supernatural. We now return to It's Supernatural.
Hello, Sid Roth here with Danny Steyne, and this is amazing. He's with an 85-year-old woman. Arthritis throughout her body. She was, did she come in, on a walker?
She came in on a walker.
Tell me about her.
I just looked at her. She was actually with two other elderly friends. And I said, you don't need that. And I said, would you like that pain gone? And she said, I'd love it gone. And I said, why don't you stand up? And she stood up, and I said, now, friends, take away her walker. And I said, in Jesus' name, pain, leave. And immediately she just began realizing something was happening to her body. And within just a minute, she says, I feel like running and jumping. And it was a really awesome thing. And we said, go for it. And so she began running around and just jumping around. The Spirit of God just completely healed her, took away the arthritic condition, and very precious woman, very precious.
Yeah, well, you know what really provokes me to jealousy is Danny is on an airplane. I'm on an airplane a lot. This has never happened to me that I know about. Danny gets on an airplane and he's like me. He figures there's a divine appointment, at least there's a captive audience. And so he's got his captive audience there, but it wasn't normal, was it, Danny? Tell me about this guy.
I sat with him, and normally conversations will happen fairly easily, and sometimes the Lord will show me something about the person sitting next to me, but that wasn't happening at all. And so I really was questioning some things, and I asked him one question. I said, are you going to San Francisco on business? And he said, very important business. But then it was like the conversation just shut down again. It was like a coldness. And I couldn't figure that out. And as I got up to get off the plane, I turned around just to tell him to have a good time in San Francisco, and he wasn't there.
Oh, well, he must have just left while you weren't looking.
There's nowhere to move on an airplane, Sid. You're kind of captive. I mean, it's pretty crowded at that point in time.
But now I'm going to fast forward. You show up at a meeting, and he shows up too. Just tell me that part.
Yeah, we had this meeting, and actually the Spirit of God had been starting to break through and do some things, but it wasn't quite to the degree that we knew it needed to be. And that night there were some awesome things that the Lord did, where we just saw, He showed us some things happening in that room. But at that point in time, this man came and stood up in front of me. I didn't see him, and then I saw him, and then I didn't see him. And he said one little phrase. He said, I'm here. And from that moment on, the meetings were unbelievable. Just the presence of God, the healings, the release of His presence.
What's the name of this angel?
They call him Breakthrough, and they call him that because he's an angel that comes to break through. He comes to bring the release of God in places that might have been in opposition to it, or it's just been closed.
Listen, you had, as far as I'm concerned, a major breakthrough with your two daughters. There were two things that God used supernaturally. One is you wrote a letter to your ex-in-laws. Tell me about that.
I did. I wrote a letter basically telling them that I was forgiving them and forgiving my ex-wife for taking my daughters. I did this while they were still gone.
How could you do that? These are your daughters.
Because Jesus would do that.
Good enough. What happened in the natural realm as a result of what you did right in the spirit realm?
A week later, I received actually an email from an attorney who had helped me with a lot of the issues related to their abduction and everything else. I owed a lot of money, thousands, tens of thousands of dollars. And I had gone to them before and asked them for reprieve, and they said no. But a week later after that, not knowing that letter was sent, they wrote me an email and they said, if you can come up with $2,000 by the end of next month, we will forgive all your debt. And which I was able to come up with the $2,000 and was forgiven tens of thousands of dollars worth of debt.
Okay, I can get that, but 12 bells? Tell me about that.
The day before, a major thing was going to happen when my daughters were going to return.
How many years had gone by?
6 years.
6 years.
Over 6 years. And the day before, I had somebody who had been praying for me, and they called me and they said, Danny, I have something very strange to do. I'm supposed to pray for you over the phone, but there's something strange I have to do. And I said, oh, what's that? And they said, I need to ring a bell. And I said, okay. I said, just go for it, do it. And they rang this bell 12 times through the phone, and I felt something with it. But the next day at 12 noon, I got a phone call from the FBI, and they said, we've got your girls. They're here. And I had so many hopeful times. I said, really? They said, really? They said, come get your daughters. And I drove up to where they were, and we had a meal together that night, and they've been home ever since. Precious daughters.
No, at no time did you give up? I mean, this is a long time, 6 years.
You know, when we give our lives to Jesus, and when I gave my daughters to Jesus, he made a promise that he would hold them. They were his girls. They weren't just mine. And I have to hold on to that hope. And I know there are a lot of people who need that hope in various things. And hope deferred makes a heart sick, but a longing fulfilled is the tree of life. That's the second part. And that's really what I believe the Lord was doing, was he was showing me the longing fulfilled. It's delightful.
You know what I love? Danny is so free. He's a worship leader, and he has jam sessions, nothing scripted, but this is ridiculous. A guy is doing a mega $1 million Hollywood type motion picture with no script.
Well, actually, he'd watched our worship, and our worship is very free. And we basically our terminology is we just go after it. We don't necessarily have the songs all written. In fact, there have been hundreds of songs that have been written in the past couple of years already as a result of this. But the reality has been that there's been an explosion because it's so free. It's so full of the Spirit of God.
How much is he spending for that picture?
I believe the budget is $200 million.
With no script? Is he Meshuggah? That's crazy.
He wants to demonstrate that God can make a movie.
Better than man.
Absolutely.
And guess what? God can solve your problem better than you can. There are people listening right now that need a breakthrough. Well, the Word of God says, all things are possible to those who believe. Don't give up. Danny, in 30 seconds, look in the camera and tell people not to give up.
I want to really encourage you to strengthen your heart by knowing that there's one who believes in you more than you probably believe in yourself, and that he has a destiny for you. And that he has a destiny. He's the one who allows people to become Josephs who go to exile. He's the one who causes them to become princes and kings that will rule nations. And you can't give up. You just got to keep holding on.
He is the God of the breakthrough. And in Yeshua's name, I release all of the angels of the breakthrough to restore, recover, preserve, and thrust you into your heart's desire. Because your heart's desire is God's heart's desire. And it's not an accident you're watching. I say in Yeshua's name, breakthrough, breakthrough, breakthrough.